Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite baits to throw during the fall, and that is a buzz bait. So one of the reasons I like a buzz bait so much is, number one, you can catch really big fish on them. They seem to be kind of a big fish style bait. And then number two is you can cover a ton of water with them. You can just cast and wind. You don't got to do much thinking about it or too much slowing down. You can just keep on moving, and I think that's really, really important during the fall. So I'll go over some of my favorite buzz baits as far as brands go, and then the colors I like to use, and then a few other little things I do to maybe alter the sound. Some of them are clacking style buzz baits that kind of clack off the head. Other ones are just traditional, and I try and get those as squeaky as possible. I think that is the best way to entice some of the bigger fish to bite, and I'll show you just what I do to achieve the sounds that I like. Now, as far as buzzbaits go, two different styles here basically. This one here is a Crocker gator head knocker. This blade spins and makes contact with the head each time and has like a unique kind of clacking sound. You can also bend the blade out if you want, so it doesn't have a clacking sound. And then here's just a Strike King buzzbait, one of my favorite old school ones that I throw a lot. And this is just, you know, it all does a squeak. And this is a little bit more of a finesse style approach, I would say, as opposed to the Crocker gator is kind of like loud and in their face. We'll start with the Strike King buzzbait and why I like this one so much. I've been throwing this one for like 10 years probably, maybe a little bit more. I have a whole box full of them. I've just bought up a bunch in case they ever discontinue them. I have them. It's a Strike King Bleeding Elite buzzbait. 3/8 ounce is the actual name of this buzzbait if you want to find one. I like how offset the hook is from the blade. It's really good landing percentage of the fish. Fish come up and they get a hold of this, they're nowhere near the blade. They're coming up for the back profile of it. They're getting on it. You almost hardly ever lose a fish on a hookup. Now they can jump and you lose them. That's just part of top water, and doesn't matter really what buzzbait you throw. That's just the name of the game. But as far as initially getting the fish hooked up, these are really, really good. I like them a lot. They're not like a clacking style, obviously. It's just a regular blade. It's a pretty small blade though, and then you'll notice something unique about it, just the holes punched in it. So if you get a condition where water is pretty oxygenated and you throw this around, it leaves really, really good bubble trails. You could throw it in a pocket somewhere and see exactly where you threw this buzzbait for several minutes after you make a cast. So that's something I like about it. And like most buzzbaits, after you throw it for a while, I don't know if you can hear that well in a few customizations, it has a pretty good squeak for what it is. So that's kind of why I like that one. It's just been an old trusty one. I've caught a ton of fish on that buzzbait. So for me, it's a lot of confidence. And I think that's a lot of what fishing is. And a lot of topwater fishing is confidence. Now we'll go on to the Crocker gator and kind of why I like this one. So first thing we'll start off with is this is a head knocker style buzzbait. So every time this blade rotates around, it hits the head of the bait and it makes a unique clacking noise. And I'll kind of show that later. But you can bend it out like this and make it so it doesn't really hit the head at all. Or you can take it and kind of bend it in so it hits the head more. You can fine tune these a lot. The wire is pretty thin, pretty flimsy compared to the Strike King one. That's got a little bit more of a thick wire on it. And part of the reason is, you know, it has to be somewhat thin for the adjustments on this. And one negative part of that is, you know, if you catch a really big fish or you catch multiple fish on it, you pretty much got to retune it each time. If they hit it hard enough, they're gonna like bend this thing totally up, and you got to spend some time retuning it, getting everything straightened back out and getting it to the sound you want. So that's kind of a negative, but that's just what makes this bait, you know, unique and special, is the ability to kind of tune it like that. So that's, you know, just comes with it. And one other thing is just the blade size overall. So this blade size, this is a 1/2 ounce buzzbait, this is a 3/8 ounce buzzbait, and you can see the blade size difference. The Crocker gator, a little bit bigger blade on it, but that's not a huge deal, because if you wanted this bait to have a bigger blade on it, you could just buy the larger blades and put it on here and it'd be the exact same thing. So that's not really a huge deal, but that's just something that's nice that comes out of the package. And one other thing you'll notice is how flat this head is. So very flat, and that allows this bait to plane out very quickly and get on the surface very fast, in addition with the larger blade. So you can crawl this at a pretty low rate of speed and still get some good head knocking noise, whereas the Strike King one, a little bit smaller blade, you got to kind of keep it moving a little bit faster, or if you're gonna keep it slower, it's just not gonna have much noise because it doesn't create quite as much lift on the blades. And then, like I was talking about earlier, you see how short this distance is between the hook point and the blade, and that can sometimes be a little bit of a negative drawback as far as actually getting the fish that are striking on it. But you can always put your trailer hook on there, and then that'll get your hook point way back here, and that'll kind of offset that. Here's another one I like. This is a 3/8 ounce Tackle HD. It's basically a straight knockoff of the Crocker gator baits. I bought some just to try it out. They do have this nice little keeper on here if you want to take the skirt off and put a different type of trailer on there. But Crocker Gator also does make a head now that has basically the same keeper on it, that's designed to put toads or Kitex or whatever soft plastic trailer you want to put on there instead of a skirt. As far as customizing your bait, just a few simple little things can make them a lot squeakier and give them a lot more noise. So we'll start with the Crocker Gator. I believe they always come crimped. This rivet comes crimped, and that's one of the biggest things you can do. You don't want this to spin, because basically you need to think about what is going to cause the squeaking noise, and that is friction. With this rivet being stationary, this blade is spinning on it the whole time, and that's going to cause a little bit more squeaking noise. The other thing you can do is you can actually take a file and rough up the top of the rivet or the bottom of the blade where it sits. And some blades are different where they contact. I'll show another one here in a second, but we get a lot more squeak. So this is a Strike King. I haven't really done any modifications to, minus I did crimp it, but I haven't done any filing on it, and it hasn't been used much. So people used to always talk about sticking these out the window or whatever, driving down the road, and make them real squeaky, and that will make them squeaky. If you look at this blade here, you can see the shaft actually slides through it. Kind of show you both sides. So this one's kind of unique because it's very lightly touching in here, and then it's touching on the back side of here. So on this one, I would get a little file or some sandpaper. Just a little file usually works the best, though. It's easiest to do. And rough up the top of this rivet after I crimp it, of course. You can see that one's smashed down. You just use a pair of pliers. If you're going to do a bunch of them, I found that like a wire stripper tool works really good that you would crimp like little butt connectors with. That works awesome to get these crimped, and they crimp really nice and flat, and it keeps the top square. So I'd file on the top, file on the shaft here, and then you can kind of really just go along the whole thing, kind of slide this around and rotate it so you can file on the whole thing. You just need a little bit of abrasion on there, and that'll make it quite a bit squeakier. So here's just kind of what it would sound like out of the package, minus I did already crimp the bottom. So it's got a little bit of squeak to it, just for basically crimping the bottom. And then here's one that's been used a little bit more and crimped and filed. So that's quite a bit squeakier, but really just the more you use them, you know, the more wear you're going to get on that and the squeakier it's going to be. Customizing your buzzbait, they're super easy. Just get some blades. They sell them all over the place. I get them a lot of times from lure parts online. They've got all different sizes and colors, and they've got 3-blade style, 2 blades, which is basically just the fins. They have different directions they can spin, all sorts of little customization type things, but I normally just keep it pretty simple as far as that goes, and I just have some spare parts in case like one breaks or something and I want to swap it out, or I mix and match different size blades sometimes to different buzz baits. All right, now as far as colors, I'm not sure it really makes that much of a difference. Here's just like a white and silver. You've got a black and gold. I do like this color a lot, like the Ozarks. I like it on a little bit sunnier day, a little bit of flash on that gold blade. I think that does help. Then you've got a black and silver, black and black. Black's pretty popular. I think it's nice because it does contrast. You know, if you have like a cloudier day or something, that black does stand out on the water. They might be able to track it a little bit better. But I've also had just as much luck throwing a white and silver on a real cloudy day or something, and I've had really good luck. And then you could do the same thing. This is white and silver. You could do white and gold. You can do like a white and white blade. They make painted blades too, but I pretty much stick with black and gold, or white and silver, and then I'll throw black and black sometimes too. So that's basically all I do for the colors. And then the other thing you can do is just your different size buzz baits. This is like a little 1/4 ounce buzz bait, pretty small. You know, just compare these two. Look at the profile difference. You know, this is very, very small, a little bit bigger. So if you're maybe in more of a finesse situation, you could throw this if you're trying to get a few more bites. But I almost always end up throwing at least a 3/8 ounce, ½ ounce, and I even got some 3/4 ounce. As far as your rod, reel, and line go, you don't really need anything too special for your rod. I'm normally throwing it on like a 7-foot heavy or 7-foot medium heavy. You can get away with throwing some of the smaller ones, maybe on a medium, but I prefer the medium heavy to a heavy. And then the reel, I'm looking at usually like a 7/3-1. If you go faster, that's really only a bonus, because say you're making long casts and you've got a pretty particular area where you want your buzzbait to be, and you get out of that area and you think, okay, I'm not going to get any bites, you know, after it gets out of that area. Well, then you can reel it in a lot faster, get to the boat, make another cast in the sweet spot where it needs to be. As far as line goes, you're going to hear a lot of different opinions for it. A lot of people are going to say they love braid. That's all that you should ever throw a buzzbait on, and that's fine. I don't think it necessarily matters that much. I've almost always thrown them on fluorocarbon because most of my rods are strung up with fluorocarbon. I'm not a real big fan of braid. I do have basically one rod with braid on it, and that's it. But in my eyes, it's a moving bait. It does not matter if you have braid or fluorocarbon. I kind of like the fluorocarbon because it gives you a little bit of stretch. I don't really like mono because I think it's too much, especially on a longer cast. But the braid has, you know, absolutely zero stretch. So you need, I think, a little bit softer rod maybe if you're going to be using the braid to help control those fish a little bit, so they don't spit it quite as easy, so it can absorb some of that. Whereas with the fluorocarbon, you can get away with, I think, more of like a fast or extra fast rod, and you know, your line's helping absorb some of that like shaking motion and surging with the buzzbait. So I'm normally throwing it with like 17-pound, maybe 20-pound fluorocarbon, and it's never let me down. The braid is nice though, throwing around docks and things like that with the cables. You know, if you get the right kind of braid, it's got a lot more abrasion resistance, and it's just tough, and you can throw like 50-pound braid and you're pretty well not gonna have to worry too much about abrasion or breaking off. Or with fluorocarbon, you kind of got to watch it. That's kind of a personal preference, you know, if you prefer braid or if you prefer fluorocarbon. So as far as where you're going to throw buzzbaits at Lake the Ozarks during the fall, you just need to remember that covering water is your main priority. Now you can start to get into a pattern. You might really be focusing on docks or the very last docks in the creek channels or in the some of the pockets, and be fishing around those. You can also get out on the main lake and be throwing on riprap or big chunk rock. You get some of the black rock, kind of what I call it, that's like on the banks. And when it does actually start to cool off a little bit more and the water starts to cool off, maybe a big cold front hits and it gets sunny in the afternoon, that like black rock warms up and holds a lot of heat, and those fish kind of slide up on there. So, you know, throwing it on things like that, just any sort of target you can see. If you're going down the bank and you see, like, you know, a chunk of concrete, or you see some sort of like target underwater that's something different, you know, make sure you throw towards that and try and target that with your buzzbait, because that's basically what you're looking for. It's just something a little bit different, and then also, again, trying to get it into spots that maybe other people aren't getting into. You know, you might have a bunch of people running down the bank and they're throwing it right down the edge of the dock, right on the corners, getting the real easy target, but they might not be going behind the dock, flipping it and then kind of doing their shorter retrieves around like the big concrete support posts, or around some of the floats and walkways further back in there. That's a little harder to get to. So sometimes picking it apart a little bit will help you get a lot more bites. And then, you know, a lot of times that's where I find the real big fish are, is a little bit harder to reach areas, but that's just one of the beauties of the buzzbaits. You can just go and cast and cover a ton of water in a day. So now I'll cast a few of them and kind of let you listen to the sounds and the differences between some of the different just brands of buzzbaits. First up, I'll do the old Strike King buzzbait. So you'll hear how this is kind of quiet. It does have a squeak. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to hear the squeak on camera, but we'll see. You can hear that at all. It's got a little squeak, but it's pretty quiet. I keep my rod tip up, and I also don't point it directly at the bait. I kind of keep it off, probably to like the, say, 1 to 2 o'clock position of the bait, in regards to that. And it's just kind of stays up at like almost a 45-degree angle. That helps the bait kind of stay up out of the water a little bit, and you can reel it a whole lot slower. But it also puts you in a good position when a fish does strike, to kind of let them take it and let the rod tip kind of set the hook on it. You know, when they actually get it, you can kind of lean into them a little bit more and drive the hook totally home. But if you got a good sharp hook, it pretty well does the work for you. Next up is Crocker gator. So it's slapping it pretty decent, and I'll kind of move it over. Now, if you bend it too much, it's going to hit this head too hard, and it's never going to really spin. It's going to like skip and just not, you know, go across the water at all because it's too much resistance. So it's kind of a sweet spot on these. But I'll cast her out, and you'll be able to hear if you've never messed with one before. So you can see it's got a little bit of a clacking sound. Hopefully the braid's not too loud on this reel. A little fish come up, smack at it, but that kind of drives the fish nuts a little bit. I'll do the tackle HD just to show you again too what this one sounds like. This one's a little bit, it's got a little different tone than a Crocker gator, just because it doesn't contact the head quite as much. This one's kind of got a higher pitch than the Crocker gator. The Crocker gators are pretty deep. This one's a little bit squeakier, I would call it. So that's a little bit more in depth of the buzzbait and kind of what I like to look for. So the main takeaway points here is, as far as color goes, I'm generally using either like a black with a gold blade if it's a little bit sunnier out, maybe a black with a black blade, or a white with a silver if it's a little cloudier. That kind of goes against what some people believe in. Some people think you should use a darker color on a cloudier day and whites and stuff on a sunnier day, but I honestly think it's mostly what you have confidence in. The next thing is find the buzzbait that you have confidence in, whether it's the Strike King or a Crocker gator or any of the other brands that are out there. Look for some of the head knocker ones if you want to give your bait a little bit different sound and style. And then I also like the Strike King one that doesn't have that aspect, because some days it seems like they want to bite the loud, aggressive buzzbait, and other days it seems like they don't want anything to do with it, and that you catch them a lot better on just like a quieter style buzzbait with just a little more squeak. So that's something to experiment with. The final thing is keep your bait moving. That's the name of the game in the falls, just cover water. One thing I did not talk about is the wind. You can chase the wind sometimes in the back of the pockets and stuff, and that'll help you. But I think a lot of times in the back, I don't know if the wind helps or changes it all that much. It's kind of like if the fish is there, you know, they're there and they're going to eat usually. But out on the main lake areas, if you're throwing it on the bigger chunk rock and things, chasing the gizzard shad, there I think the wind definitely helps you. So keep that in mind. But just the biggest thing is find something you're confident in. You know, mess around with the colors or the style a little bit, experiment, see if they're doing a little bit better one day than the other, and then last but not least, just keep it moving. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it helps you catch some big fish in the fall on top water. We'll definitely have some more videos coming out here for you soon. We've been really busy, and then our giveaway is coming up soon. I believe we also got our hats in, called the other day, and so they're supposed to be ready very soon. So that'll be ready, and we'll be giving some stuff away. So thanks for watching, guys, and good luck out there.